All right, so I think let's get going. So this is the part one video that's going to be a session on Microsoft Exchange Server 2013, and we're going to discuss more or less going to be on our major changes that we got on. I'm sorry about that. I think I probably should be keeping audience on mute for some time. So once we are all settled, we can take it off from the mute. So if there is any question, please ping me. I think it should be the best level for recording as well. Okay. All right, so let's start from the beginning. So this session is something we're going to do on Exchange Server 2013, and we're going to cover up the major changes that we have with Exchange Server 2013. If you compare that with the older versions of Exchange, we're not going to compare that to very old versions, but yes, two versions earlier are what was not there and what was there here. And maybe at the very end of this session, so we should be discussing the other way around, like what has been removed from this version and what was there in the earlier versions. And this is going to be the part one of the two sessions. Like there will be another session for tomorrow wherein we will be discussing the second part. So let's go on to the agenda. Before that, I'd like to give you an overview about who I am. I am an infrastructure consultant with around 8 years experience in designing and implementing Microsoft infrastructure, which is more or less likely to be on Active Directory messaging, system-centered products, and virtualization. And what is this Road2Master? I mean, it's basically a concept that I created so that people around the world can learn by sharing the knowledge each other. And this is not actually a forum wherein you get knowledge in one side. It's not a knowledge transfer which happens from one direction. We are joined with many people from all around the world, and it's actually evening for some guys. It's already night for some guys, and it's already early morning for some. So, but we are joining for a common requirement that we should learn together and we should be good in the technologies when we end the session. So we should be taking off some knowledge from me, and when you have something else to share about the same technology, you're more or less welcome to do that, and we will be good to discuss each other on the same thing. So that's basically the reason to form Road2Master. It's not really a training academy, but it is a knowledge transfer center, I can say, wherein we transfer the knowledge between each other. Okay, so let's get into the agenda of the training, and that's going to be the major changes. That's what we are going to discuss today. And the part one, that's what we are going to cover up today, and the part two is something that we will be covering up tomorrow. And the part one is going to be the very first thing we're going to say is in any product, we should first of all touch the architecture of the product. And so we will be discussing what changes happened in the architecture. And whenever the Exchange came in the picture, everybody started talking about something called Exchange Admin Center. So we can actually go through that and understand what is that. I mean, what is that new with Exchange Admin Center? And then we should be going through, is there any change to the information store? Because that's one of the biggest questions that every Exchange administrators ask whenever a new release of Exchange comes up. Is there the change in the information store? Is that still on Jet Engine, or is it running on something else? So we will be discussing on that, like what all changes you find in the information store. And these Exchange is more or less going to be a secure medium to transport the data, and hence that lies more or less going to be on the encryption level. And then there is some changes that is made on the certificate management. And nowadays we use email for almost every purpose, so we should be making sure that is compliance with the policy and the other requirements that a company has. So we can go through the changes that this version has kept on, and the other changes that is actually the anti-malware protection. It is something that was not there in the older version. We had to rely upon the third party to do a real anti-malware protection. So what are the things that we have in this one? And at any condition, do we need to use a third party? So those things we will be discussing on that. And we shall be discussing about the transport rules and what is a change? I mean, it's not something that is came new in this version, but this is something we're going to discuss about the like what all changes that came up with the new version of transport rules. Okay, somebody's asking that has the online session started? Okay, so I think somebody already replied to him. So that's already going on. I think if you're not able to hear me, that's probably the speaker is on mute. But update me if everybody else is able to see. I mean, and hear me what I'm saying. So probably I don't want to end up just talking from my end. Nobody hears me. So that's really good. So I got an instant reply saying yes. So that's good. So we were on the transport rule. We will be discussing what changes came up in the transport rules. It's not something new, definitely. And we will be discussing about the mail flow. I mean, is there a difference in the mail flow which used to happen in the older version, and is there a difference right now? And finally, we will deal with the recipient management. Is there a change in the recipient management? We're not going to do every recipient management, but yes, definitely the changes that has happened in the recipient management. So that's going to be the end of today, and then we should be starting off tomorrow, and we shall be discussing about the changes that the clients and the mobile devices has come across, the changes that is there in the sharing and the collaboration area, the changes in the unified messaging, and changes in the batch mailbox move, and changes to high availability and site resiliency. And there is something new which came up, that is Exchange workload management. So we shall be discussing what it is, and we should be doing a setup of Exchange, and then so that we can come to understand that, oh, what got changed in the setup. And finally, once you set up one, and then we can probably discuss about most of the features that is removed from this version that was there in the older version. So there's one question people may ask: why did I add setup at the very end? And that's basically due to one reason, that you probably will be knowing more exciting features of Exchange at the beginning, and so you should be more happy to install Exchange and learn more. So I kept setup in the very end so that you can set it up with an agenda of knowing something which you already learned about in the 2 days. So setup is something we're going to do at the very end, and that's what we're going to do in the 2-day session. And there's one more thing: the Exchange architecture, then our messaging compliance and policy, then we have something called mail flow, and there is a high availability and site resiliency, and setup more or less going to be a designing. That's not something that we can cover up in 2 days, but yet definitely we shall be covering up most of the content that is required to be known by an Exchange administrator. And I do have an agenda to have specific session that is more or less going to only address the Exchange architecture, and another one just going to address the messaging compliance and policy, and another one just to address the mail flow and high availability and Exchange setup. So that's something we will be doing. So we shall be finding this session as a starting session which you guys can use to learn Exchange better, something that you listen to me, and then probably you can go back and use TechNet and learn more. And if I'm actually putting up the session sooner, you can join for the detailed session, and we probably can learn together again. So that's about the agenda. I want to know about is this agenda very clear, or do we need to have more discussion to understand what we're going to know today? Now you probably can reply to me on the chat. That should be enough. Oh, perfect. So let's move ahead. So when we talk about exchange architecture, what does it come in picture? I mean, we're not going to actually talk about AD architecture. Exchange requires AD, but more or less when you talk about exchange architecture, we are going to look within the exchange. So this version, that is Exchange Server 2013, has got 2 server roles, and that's it. Yes, there's only 2 server roles right now. I mean, we had more server roles in the earlier version. That's got reduced to 2. So what does this do? I mean, there's going to be one is the client access server role, another one is a mailbox server role. So the other 3, that is hub transport, unified messaging, and edge transport server role, really didn't make it to this version. I mean, to be more precise, what they did is they combined hub transport portion, and they divided them between the client access server role and mailbox server role. So which means there is no edge transport server role. Yes, there is no. So which means if you need an edge or a server that runs in the perimeter, you still need to install an older version of edge transport, which is really clear that an Exchange Server 2013 is going to work with an Exchange Server 2010 Edge Transport Server role, or else an Exchange 2007 Edge Transport Server role. So we're not really missing anything. If you need an Edge role, you still have an option to put the older version. So to give you an idea about these 2 different roles, what I have tried to do is basically I can try to discuss about the an overview about these 2 roles in the beginning, like what is the client access server role, and then we shall discuss about what is a mailbox server role in keeping the 2013 in perspective. So it's going to be like this. This is a client access server role is more or less going to be like a proxy. It's a lightweight exchange-aware proxy server. That's the best way to define a client access server role. It's a lightweight exchange-aware proxy server. And what is that going to do? It's going to serve almost all clients like MAPI, EWS, OWA, Availability Service, POP, IMAP, and Exchange Admin Console. So it is something which actually basically takes care of most of the client side things. And what it is going to do, it's only going to take the request and straight away it's going to proxy that to a mailbox server role. That's it. It's not going to do much. Basically what it is doing is it's not going to queue anything. It takes the things and gives it to mailbox server role, and mailbox server role is the one who is going to handle each and every process that is required by that particular mailbox or by that particular request. So I think that makes it more clear right now. Like, it's not actually like earlier versions wherein some portion of the activity is done by client access, some portion is done by hub transport, some portion done by mailbox server role. It's more or less going to be a mailbox server role handling almost every activity that is given for a mailbox. So there is a lot of changes which happened to the client access server role as well. Like, say, if you ask me how is this client access server role made? I mean, what is the components of the client access server role currently? It's basically 3. There is one thing is the client access protocols, and there is another one that is SMTP, and another one is call router. So that's the 3 functions, or if you ask me components, or you can ask me it's like a 3 functions of a client access server role. That's going to be a client access. It's going to host the client access protocols. It is going to have the SMTP, and it is going to have the call routing, the functions. So see, what do you mean by that? Like, say, every client request comes to a client access server role, but it is actually going to be passed to the concerned components of the mailbox server role. That's the basic way. It comes to a client access server role, it straight away proxy that across to a mailbox server role, and in a simple terms. So it is going to be like, say, for example, if you say a MAPI client is going to connect to Exchange server. So very first thing it is going to do, it is going to connect to an Exchange 2013 client access server role, and once it makes the connection, it is going to talk with the MAPI component that is there in the mailbox server role. I mean, all the communication is going to happen from the mailbox server role. The only thing that does by a client access server role is the first part of making the communication. That's it. Okay. So the other next thing is, as I said, the SMTP. I mean, what do you mean by SMTP? Yes, I mean in simple terms, transport service. We shall be discussing about the transport service in much more details in the later on parts when we actually discuss about the mail flow. This is going to handle some of the mail flow activity of an Exchange server, and we shall be discussing that in more details in the upcoming slides. So the other part is going to be like, say, somebody can ask me, like, say, the client access server role. So what about the high availability portion? Like, yeah, definitely that is still there, and it's going to use cache array. So as long as you have a cache array, and if there is internally between the servers, it's going to load balance by itself. But if you want to do it from outside, you can still do it using cache array. So that makes it very clear. And there is another nightmare many administrators had, that is RPC, and there is no RPC anymore. So it's Exchange 2013 doesn't have RPC anymore. No client is. It's not saying that it doesn't have RPC anymore. The client is not going to connect using RPC. It is going to use RPC over HTTPS, or else I can say it's a Outlook Anywhere connection, even if you are internal to the LAN. So it doesn't matter whether you are connecting from outside, whether you're connecting within the LAN, you're always using Outlook Anywhere. So that's the simple way to say. And there is another thing, that the client is not going to connect using one moment, somebody's waiting in the lobby. Let me actually put them inside. Oh, all right. So okay, so there is one more thing about the clients. Like, say, when you do a client connectivity right now, like, say, from the Outlook point of view, and if you have an Outlook 2007, how do you used to see? Like, say, if you go into the properties of the Outlook connection, you used to see the FQDN in terms of the server name. Now it's not going to be an FQDN. It's going to be a GUID that is showing up there, and the GUID is going to be attached to a particular server. So what is the good part of that? Using a GUID, the good thing is, if an administrator makes changes to your mailbox, like, say, moving the mailbox from one server to another, what used to happen in the older version, when you do that, it's going to pop you up a message saying that the administrator has made a change, you have to restart the Outlook. That message is no longer going to come if you're using Outlook 2013 and Exchange 2013. So because it's not going to connect using FQDN in the first place. And the other thing is the version of Outlook that supports. It's very clear from this sentence that Outlook 2007 or higher. Why? Because Exchange now relies highly on the auto discover options that you have in the 2007. So any version older than that is really not going to be supported on 2013. So if you have 2003 clients running, if you want to do an upgrade, you should think about upgrading Outlook in the first place, and then, or the Office package in the first place, and then move to Exchange 2013. So that's about a small overview about the Exchange architecture in place, and we probably should have more insight to the architecture when we are going to learn more about this Exchange in the upcoming like videos. Like, say, we will be knowing more about the mailbox server role when we are when we know more about the information store, and when we know more about the database, or when we know more about the mail flow, because mailbox server role still does the mail flow. So I'm not going to duplicate the information in multiple slides, but yes, this is something you need to understand in a basic overview. What are the different architecture that is currently available in the 2013 version. So I want to ask if there is any question regarding what happened right now, you can ask me, or else if you want to wait for the whole session, I'm fine. Actually, you can ask me at the very end of the session. I may ask you if there is any question. You can come back to me saying that, okay, in the server role, I have these many questions because I was waiting for the other slides to complete if that does in the others. So even that is fine. You can ask me when the session ends as well. And there are many actually joined right now. There are 20 participants as of now. I think 19 to be precise. And if somebody wants to ask a question, and if somebody knows the answer, you feel free to reply back. I mean, it's not going to be a one-way answer in the first place. I mean, all are quite a lot experienced, and then we are all should be in the same page. So we probably let's make this as a discussion and learn together, and that's what the whole agenda is going to be. I think Ashish has got some questions probably. Oh, yep, shoot up. You can probably type it on the chat. I mean, I can read it out and then reply back to you. Okay, so his question is, do you think as the mailbox server handles all the tasks, does the load increases? Okay, this is a very good question, and this is asked by many, and I would like you to pause for a while. Probably you'll get the answer once we are on the information store, because even there are a few things which are not there in mailbox server role right now, so you probably can get to know from there. It is true that definitely mailbox server role has got more things to do right now, but I would say it is more intelligent than the older versions. So it does a lot more intelligent choices rather than the earlier versions. But I think your answer will be completely solved by end of today's session. That's for sure. So I think somebody else was actually typing. So do you have the same question? Maybe yes. I think that's one of the common question many ask about, because there is less roles running, and mailbox server roles does most of the task. Not really, actually. It is not there in the release document so far. So that is something even the release document says to use the older versions of Exchange. So that's not something that is released so far in any documentation. So unless and until Microsoft makes a last moment change, but there is no plan so far. I can't see anywhere documented. And as I said, like, Exchange works very well with the older version of Edge. I mean, 2013 works really well. There is no real differences to the that you can see, because Edge, most of the things that you see on is going to be there in the Edge. Okay. Is there any improvement in anti-spam for CAS and HD? Okay. That's a good question. Definitely, there is an improvement, definitely. And I would like to say we should be actually looking into it definitely at the end of tomorrow's session, when we are actually talking about the almost everything, and then we should have a session which says about something that is removed and something that is the comparison kind of thing. So even I think we probably regarding the question on ActiveSync, the very first session that is going to happen tomorrow, that is going to be on the client and the mobile devices. We should have a discussion on that as well. Like, what is the change that you find? And definitely there is a change. So you shall look forward to that detailed session tomorrow. I think the reason for not to duplicate the thing is the one reason is going to be the session should be as small as possible, and then if the thing is going to happen tomorrow, we probably will be anyway spending time on that tomorrow. So I'm just trying to make sure that whatever we discussed just now is covered up, so that we have using the time to the best. So and so I think related to the architecture, there could be some questions lying up, and that's one of the reason I took up architecture in the first place. What I understand, if you learn something, if you have questions in mind, you get to know more curiosity to learn the whole product, so that your questions are cleared. So I'm pretty much sure you will have quite a good amount of answer to you by the end of tomorrow with most of the questions that you have. Okay, so I think let's move forward to the next part. Okay, we're trying to actually control a new product. So let's, why not we discuss about the how do we control that? Like Exchange Admin Center, everybody is talking about that right now. So what is that basically? So the very first thing that you should understand is we have been used with Exchange Management Console, which came up from 2007 and carried forward in 2010. That's no longer there in this version. There is no console. There's no MMC based console. And what is this Admin Center? It is actually it's a web page basically that you can access it from many places. So let me do this way. Let me share the server in the screen, and then I can show you the admin console, and then I can just navigate you through the admin console and show you what is there in the admin console. Just a moment. Let me actually put the server in the presentation. Okay, the RDP is getting connected right now, so you should see that in the presentation shortly. Okay. I think everybody can see a screen right now which looks like a blue and a white patch. That is what is the new administration console or a sender for every Exchange administrator. So if you want to manage using GUI, this is what you're going to use. So what is this going to be? Like say this is something web-based, which really means that it is more or less going to be useful, because yes, you can actually connect from your local computer using a web page, go into the admin console page, and then do whatever you want. And if you actually publish it from internet, you can even manage it from internet. So there are multiple reasons for that, and that is one is actually better manageability, and so that you can actually do like say, I mean, we can manage it better rather than an MSP. You don't have to install them or all those tools on most of these computers you roam around. So that's one of the reasons. And let's do this way. Let's probably navigate through the different parts of it. I can probably give you an idea about the Exchange Admin Center. Before I do that, I have a question to ask. Are you? I just actually minimized it, but are we able to see the screen earlier? Okay, perfect. Let's pull it back up. Okay. All right. See. One moment. You should be able to see that. Actually, I think it might be processing. I actually minimized them. some time back. I think oh yeah, let me actually pull it back. Present. Okay, it should be visible now. All right, so let's go back to the the admin center. So there is few things which you can see on the top. There is something called Enterprise, and there is something called Office 365. That's just a navigation bar that you can use for cross premises. Like you can actually move between Enterprise and Office 365 using that. And there is a navigation on the left, which you can see it's quite a lot self-explanatory. If you want to deal with the recipient, select here. If you want to deal with the permissions, go here. It's one of the navigation pane that you have on the left, which probably tells you what type of work that you want to do with this console. And if you see here, these are actually tabs. Like say if you click on the groups, it actually helps you to create a group. So these are basically tabs that you see here, multiple names that you see, like what all things you can do, and that's basically the tabs that you see. And if you have any notifications to come across, that will actually show up here. There should be another notification bar if there is a process that is already running there that comes up next to the administrator. There is an alert which shows up. Okay, and there is this shows up the user who is logged in, and this is actually the help that you have if you want to understand what to do. And this is basically the toolbar. Like this makes you to make one. These you can edit. If you want to delete, this is something you can select. And if you want to search for something, that's it. If you want to refresh, so this is basically the toolbar area. And this is something where you see the different list, and that's basically, yes, I only have 2 mailbox created on Exchange that is there in my lab, and this is the list of the mailbox which shows up. And if I select one of the user, I get the detail pane on the other side, which actually gives me the details of the user, like say the username, or is that a user mailbox, what is the email address that the user has, and all sort of things, like is it actually enabled with the features of phone and voice and multiple other options. So this gives you an overview of that particular mailbox. And the only agenda with this particular session for this part of the session is going to be so you can actually see the admin console, what you're going to use on Exchange 2013, and be familiar with it. It's very simple to use. It is one of the most easiest console that you can find to manage. And the good part is I don't know how many of are an Office 365 administrators who have joined the session. You can see the Office 365 console is more or less similar. So they're trying to actually make it similar to the O365 or the cloud, the console. So you will have a similar experience when doing both. Okay, so I would be stopping this sharing, and then we'll be going back to the presentation. So all right, so that's the question that you sorry, that's one of the add-in point that Charles has mentioned, and that's really good. Yes, we didn't have to have any prerequisites to manage the recipient, and that's something. See, just you need actually is a web browser. Going to the web browser, going to that, and then do whatever you want. So that's definitely a welcoming change. So let me pull back the presentation, and that's loading up. Okay, so that's what we were up to, like the Exchange admin center. and that's we have an overview of that at this point. And why I said that is because we would be going through some of the lab session in the upcoming slides, like say whenever we are doing with the connectors and all those things. So we shall be making them on the console, so you already have an idea what the console looks like, and then we should be moving through that. Okay, so any questions up till now? Okay, looks like no. Okay, so let's keep the session on the next move, that is going to be on the information store. I mean, okay, what is the difference you find on the information store right now? The information store is more or less, that is something that is called managed store, and it's all newly rewritten, and there's actually an information store process. There's two processes basically. One is in Microsoft Exchange Store Service.exe, and there is another one, Microsoft Exchange Store Worker.exe. So what are these two doing? I mean, what are the differences? Basically, the information store process is like the information store process two parts. One is Microsoft Exchange Store Service.exe. That's the same that you have been seeing in the older version, that is a store.exe, and that's something that controls the every database. And there is another one which is actually called the worker.exe. This is actually something new with this version, which means this worker.exe is going to be a process that is running one for each database, which means if you have two Exchange database, you will have one store service.exe process, another two store worker.exe. So the good part of that is going to be each database has got its own process. So it allows us to do more or less going to be an isolation of the issues. Like if there is one database that is having a trouble, only that particular database is affected. And when they actually did a new engineering, they actually made sure that it runs particularly more better with the replication, and so basically targeting the DAG. And the other part is going to be the public folder database no longer exists. Oh yes, there is no public folder database. That's going to be one of the questions. So what about the public folders? Yes, public folders still exist, but there is no public folder database, which really means the public folder is going to be like a mailbox, which is going to be lying on a mailbox database. So yeah, it's actually a mailbox nowadays. It's not going to be a database like what we had earlier. The advantage is going to be you can make use of the DAG completely for public folders right now. And if you want to make a public folder, it is going to be exactly the similar process, just like a mailbox, and then we probably can go through that right now. One moment. Okay, so this is something that you can actually make. If you go here, there is something called public folders, and you just need to actually, there is one which is actually made already. And the very first thing that you need to understand is if there is no public folder, or there is nothing on your exchange, this is an all new exchange, you should first of all go and create a public folder mailbox, and that's something that is going to have the hierarchy. And whatever you're going to make, and if you make multiple mailboxes, they're all going to have the hierarchy, but all the others are going to be a secondary. The primary is something that you can actually edit and do whatever you want. So once you have, I mean, this is not necessary to have a secondary one. This is what is required. You need to have one public folder mailbox, and then you go into here and create public folders. You can use the new public folder option to create one. Okay, so I think and if there's options here, like say if you want to mail enable that, you want to mail disable that, this is the option that you use. And if you want to manage the permissions, this is what you can use with the public folders. All right, so back to Okay, this is actually the public folder. You should be rather converting that into multiple different public folders. Okay, there is one question actually. Why would a public folder be over 200 gig? And that's probably because you are actually having data, or you're probably using it for the collaboration purpose, or maybe sharing purpose. This is something which Microsoft says public folder is not really meant for that. It is meant for not meant for the collaboration activity. I mean, you probably should be using or migrating those to SharePoint. That could be the more recommended option if the public folder database is too big. Because that's not something which what do you say? It's not something that is actually recommended to have that big public folder. So it's something that you can move across to a SharePoint infrastructure and make it more manageable that way. Okay, I think that answers it. So not actually. Will each folder be a mailbox? No, it is only not that way. No, we're not going to have each public folder as a mailbox. We should just need to compare this like this. The whole database that you had in the older version will be like a mailbox right now, and the folders that you have inside will be similar. So instead of database, those folders are going to be lying inside another mailbox. More or less, that's what we can actually think of. It's not each database. Oh yes, that's more or less like that. Yes. Oh, yes, definitely. If public folder is a mailbox, does it come under DAG? Yes, it can 100% deal the DAG. Okay, how do you control the security? That's the good part of public folder. The public folder security is managed on the folder level, which you saw here, which if you go on the console, there is the public folder the mailbox is different, and you make public folders separately, and you can definitely manage folder permissions within that, even though that is actually running inside one database or running inside one mailbox. You can control the security on each folder separately. And there is actually one challenge which people may ask for. Okay, folder permission is a nightmare for a mailbox. Okay, this is what I was actually trying to talk about in the beginning. Like, see, the public folder is not really meant for collaboration activity. It's just going to give you a basic functionality. It's not going to give you a functionality that you wish to get from a collaboration activity. I would really recommend, I mean, you should probably go with a foundation service of SharePoint and migrate the data across there. And the good part of the SharePoint is you even get the versioning option. There are more options, like you get document library and many more. I think there should be SharePoint administrators as well join to the session. Most probably they should be the best person to reply to this, but definitely it's a better option is to move to a SharePoint, and that's more manageable if we have a very heavy public folder. Right, no problem. So let's go back to the slides. Okay, so there is another thing which I want to talk about is the information store. The earlier version of Exchange, that is 2010, supported 25 gig of mailbox size. That's a maximum that it supported. And this version is going to support 100 gig, and that's alarming, definitely. And this actually because the IOPS that is going to happen over the new database is much lesser than the earlier version. So it can now support one mailbox all the way up to 100 gigabytes. And So there's another question. So if you have a 100 GB mailbox, you're going to have a OST file of 100 GB. That's exactly what is going to happen with the versions of 2010 or 2007. But if you want to actually control the OST file size, you have to have an Outlook running on 2013. So basically that resolves the issue that happens when you have a huge OST file. And okay, now there is another question which I think Ashish had. Okay, so we're going to actually see this way. Like say, the mailbox server role is going to do many of the tasks, definitely, and yes, that's one of the reason now the enterprise edition doesn't support 100 database. It's going to be only supporting 50 database a mailbox server. So a mailbox server role has got less number of database to handle at this point. Okay, if a mailbox, okay, there was another question that was actually asked. If public folder is a mailbox, can we back it up so we can flush the logs, or if it is going to be too big? Okay, the backup is again on the database, that is on the mailbox database. As long as you're taking a proper backup of your mailbox database, and if there is a full backup running on a proper schedule, it will automatically flush the logs. So I think that will address the scenario that you might think about a public folder. So it's going to be, there is no separate backup that you have to do for public folder. If you do a mailbox database backup, that will cover the public folder. Okay, so and another thing is from 2007 we have a very nice VSS level backup, very much supported, not like the older version. So VSS level backup is much faster as well, so it really doesn't give much issues if you have a heavy database. And the other thing is, I think that is something which came up with the DAG, a backup-less solution. If you have multiple DAG running, it will actually purge the logs by itself, and that scenario is something called a backup-less infrastructure. You don't have to take a backup if you have 3 or more DAG running. So I mean 3 or more database running in the same DAG. So that's something that is still not used by many, but yes, you still have that option. So with the because of the, that's an advantage from the DAG, and there's nothing to do with the public folder. All right, so I think let's talk about the certificate management. I think this has been one of the questions that many had for a while. Like say, certificate management has been not really that easy, because you really do not have a quite a lot. Like you do not have a particular admin console to do that, but that's not the case anymore. You can manage your Exchange certificate using Exchange Administration Console, or sorry, Exchange Admin Center. It's the same that we saw just now, and that what we're going to do is oh yeah, that's something which it is definitely. So okay, Tony was asking, is the information still running on a jet engine or a ESE? Oh yes, it is still a jet engine. There is no difference in that. It is not going to be SQL. I don't think it is going to be SQL in the future as well. It is still jet engine. So yes, your USE util commands are still going to work. So I can let me share back the server. I can show you the all new certificate console that we have, and probably then I can show you like how you can create a new certificate, how simple it is right now. Okay, there's the Oh, the very first thing is certificate. Where do we put the certificate? It's something that we put on the server level. So you should be navigating to server, and there you go, certificates. So it's that simple. You actually go into the server, select the certificate, and you go into the plus sign, which actually says to say new. You click on that, you get two options. That is, one is going to be a request for a certificate from a certificate authority, and I'll probably create a request, right? Just a friendly name, so I'll say new cert, and if I say click next, so this is something that is what do you want to actually have? Like, say, what is your domain first of all? Maybe your domain is going to be like mail dot something something. So I'll probably keep it like road2master.com. So whatever is earlier to road2master should be fine. Like, say mail.road2master.com. Okay, and I'll click next, and I'm going to store this on this particular server, and then click next. Okay, these are the few of the options that you have to select. You have to put the organization name, the department name, city where you are, and once you do that, and then basically this is something that happens when you actually selected the wildcard earlier. If you see here, this is just a moment. I think it actually changed the. Okay, let me actually share the program again. Oh yeah, that's because it's a Windows Server 2012. It went to Metro app. Okay, Metro UI or whatever you can call. So say it this way. Suppose I didn't select that option. What would happen? So click next. Okay, click next. There is a difference in the navigation pane, and this is what is the best part of Microsoft Exchange 2013 certificate management. This actually asks you, hey, what do you want this? Are you going to use it for Auto Discover? Are you going to use it for either of these? So you can actually select them and say you can actually specify or whatever you want, and then click next, and it basically helps you to track what all things are required. Basically, like, what is the URL that you want to specify if somebody is trying to access it over ActiveSync? What is the URL that you want to specify if it is via Outlook web app? And the other after that, you know, reason why I got this when I unchecked the star, and that's because the wildcard certificate is something means anything ahead of road2master.local. So it really doesn't matter whether you have mail dot, whether you have auto discover dot. So if you don't want a wildcard certificate, sometimes wildcard certificate cost more than the other certificate, and so you have an option to go with a specific certificate as well. And once you select these and click next, and you will be asked to put the organization details like organization name, department name, the country or the region where you are, and the city and the state, and just the same option that you saw just a while back. And then you can click next, and it'll ask you, where do you want me to put the request file? You put a location and then click finish, and that's it. And then it saves the request file, and then you can take the request file and give it to a certificate authority. You will be issued with a certificate. And that's about how to create a certificate, or how to ask for a certificate. So let's go back to the presentation. Okay, there's few things actually. So we saw one thing right now. The functionality is added on Exchange Administration Center, and there is one more thing. Every certificate management is performed on a client access server. So if you want to make any certificate management, that is going to be using the client access server. Okay. And the other things. Okay. Uh, the notification sender is that's actually going to show you or notify you whenever your Exchange 2013 preview or Exchange 2013 client access server is about to expire. So you will be notified. Definitely, you're not going to be in a all of a sudden you get to know that things are not working because it's actually expired. You get notified. And there is another cool feature, that is you have a client access server role and mailbox server role running in multiple servers, which means suppose you don't have a certificate which you purchased on the mailbox server role, but you have one running on a client access server role. The client access server role is automatically going to trust the self-signed certificate that is running on the mailbox server role, which actually is good because it actually reduces your cost. So you don't really need a certificate from a third-party trusted authority on every Exchange server, but yes, definitely needed on the client access server role. I think that's really about major changes that you can think about the client access, sorry, certificate management. Okay, yeah, Charles, that's definitely a good feature because the notification is talking about the notification. Because yes, we do find a lot of severity 8 tickets or the crit set tickets coming up because the certificates are failed or it is actually invalid. So that notification is definitely a good feature for most of the administrators. So let's go to the next part. Okay, this is one of the topic which really require more attention. Probably I need to go through a different session altogether just talking about mailbox messaging policy and compliance, but we can give an overview of what is the messaging policy and compliance in this, what is new in Exchange Server 2013. The very first thing, data loss prevention. I mean, what do you mean by that? This statement itself says it is something helps you to protect your sensitive data. So either you can block it, or whenever somebody types a sensitive data, you can just use a DLP with tips, like just like a mail tip that you have, is updating them. Oh yeah, you are actually using something which is actually sensitive, which is not supposed to be sent. So, which is something new which came up right now, which is actually really good because some of the users do send by mistake some sensitive information to unauthorized people. Everybody doesn't do it by knowingly. So this DLP tips is something which is really good. So what it actually does, it actually monitor or it actually identify or monitor, and it is going to because it monitors and identify, it is going to protect your data. So basically it is going to protect your valuable data from going out of your network. Okay, there are multiple things involved, like say you have something called in-place archiving or retention, e-discovery. What do you mean by all this? Like say in-place archiving, you can actually make a policy to archive, basically, yes, and that's what it actually says. And the other one is retention or hold, or what do you mean by hold? If you want a particular emails that is going on from your organization to be never deleted, even if the user deletes it, you use this policy, and that user, either the whole mailbox data will be on hold or else that particular data will be on hold. And e-discovery is really good, like an administrator who can search for the messages across the mailboxes, and whenever he finds a new one, it can place it in the e-discovery mailbox. Oh yes, when we talk about search, yes, it's not going to use the older version of search. It is going to use the a better option. Basically, it's the fast search which you had in the SharePoint, and that's basically integrated to Exchange as well right now. And unlike earlier versions, you do not need like say unlike the older versions, you do not need a separate, or say if you ask me in SharePoint, you had a fast search server. You don't need that. It runs within the Exchange. Oh yes, it actually searches not only just Exchange, it searches Link, SharePoint, Exchange, all in one. So that's something we will be discussing in much detail when you actually talk about tomorrow's session. That is what's new in the sharing and collaboration. So yes, it actually search one place to search almost everything. So you don't have to search separately for SharePoint, separate for Link, and separate for Exchange. It is actually all in one. So Tony says, since there is no hub transport, is this process now a part of mailbox server? Okay. The hub transport is basically divided. Like some portion of hub transport is given to client access server role, and some portion is given to mailbox server role. It's not 100% handled by mailbox server role. So we will discuss about that in more detail when we talk about the mail flow. Like who does what. So, but that is not exactly 100% mailbox server role, but it is distributed between them. Okay, I think Ashish have one question. Okay, that's good. All right, so I think let's go ahead, and then I think it is quite explanatory from here. Like so in place hold means you can keep a mailbox on hold. Like say you don't want to delete the data from that. You can actually in place e-discovery, you can search in multiple mailbox and move it across to e-discovery mailbox. And this is something which is good. You can now search your primary and archive mailbox in one place. I mean, you don't have to do two different search. Earlier versions you needed to do that, and if you ask me, many still used to use a third-party archiving solution because it actually searches from one place, but this now does it. And you can even archive the link conversation, and you have still the retention policies in place. You can make policies and create retention policies. Yeah. And transport rules, yes, there is something that is still there. That is, you can create transport rules. So a particular rule is in place, and then if that is met, a condition is met, an action will be taken care of that. Like say, suppose you have particular wordings used in an email. You want to make sure that it goes to your manager's approval. That's possible. And information rights management. Okay, in simple terms, that is to protect your sensitive emails from unauthorized access. Simple as this. Like say when you send an email to somebody, you want to make sure that it's the only person who reads that, or it's the only person who can reply back. So like he can't forward that email. He can't do a reply to all if you are actually adding a DL, because many we probably saw many reasons, like say people sending an email to DL, but they don't want the reply coming to everyone. So you can keep a information rights management in place, and then say that only reply to me rights mentioned on that. So that's something that is it's not actually something which you need just Exchange. If you want to make this possible, you need to have Active Directory RMS running. So that's about an overview, but it's not ending here. We should be going to the next slide, which is still going to talk about the messaging compliance. Like say, one part of the messaging compliance is the transport rules. Okay, because what actually compliance is? Okay, RMS was possible in 2007 and 10. Oh yes, definitely. This is actually something, if you ask me, it was possible in older versions, definitely. It's not something really relatively new. Yes, it is something which is even possible in the new versions. I mean, the Exchange 2013. So yes, definitely, it was there in the older version as well. The only difference is that it's going to use the next RMS version right now. Like not like the older versions, it is going to use the 2.0. So that's the only difference. Okay. The major changes for the transport rule. Okay, there are a few things that got added. Like say it can detect sensitive information from message body and attachment. Oh, it can even detect messages sent from a specific IP range. It can detect with specific extension. Okay, and even it can actually or reject messages that has got executable contents. Okay, most of them you may think it is actually there in the older version. It was there, but I can say it is actually the metadata is more intact right now. This exchange understands the metadata of most of the file extensions right now. It's just not going to see that. It is going to see up to the level of the metadata of that content. And what do you mean by the detect sensitive information? This is actually depends upon which part of the world you are. Some places credit card like name in the credit card can be sensitive, or else you can have a PAN card number that is sensitive. So you can have a template and use the template and put it in the transport rule, so that whenever those information is there in the email, either the user will be updated that you are not supposed to send it, or else the user will be straight away they either reject the email. Okay, so there is new actions as well possible. That is the DLP policy notification. Like say if you're going against the DLP policy, you will be notified. Like if you want to rectify that and send it, like it's not going to be like you send an email, DLP finds it, and it is going to delete it. So, but it can even actually configure in such a way that it can notify you even before you send. And you can actually see specific rules saying that if this rule is applied, don't apply any other rules. So those things are possible. And you can even actually say a TLS encryption requirement on a particular email. Okay, so that's something that is new with the transport rule. And creating a transport rule is quite a lot simple. It is exactly similar to the Outlook rule, and that you're going to use the Exchange admin center to do that. And I mean, it being very simple, we're not going to discuss that or show that, but yes, definitely if people around in the session want to see that, I can share the screen and show it across. That's a very simple process to create a rule. It's a self-explanatory inside the Exchange admin center. Okay, so that's about the messaging policy and compliance. The major change is the DLP, and that is something which is really a welcoming move from Microsoft, like say data loss prevention policy, wherein you can actually prevent things to go bad. Okay, so that is the next part, and I think Iqbal had this question, that is anti-malware protection. Okay, he specifically had a question on anti-spam, and I would probably put that as another answer as well. So let's see, this is a part of it. Like say the anti-malware, I mean, the Exchange 2013 has got a built-in anti-malware protection. I mean, you don't really have to go ahead and then install a third-party application and do an anti-malware protection scanning, because it is going to use Forefront. It is going to get the updates or definitions from Forefront that is running online. So that is going to be definitely reliable. And if a malware is detected, the message is going to be deleted. And there is actually, you can even actually replace the infected attachment and put a custom message and then notify the recipient that, okay, it's been deleted because it was actually detected, something like that. So this comes a question, like I already have a third-party anti-malware product running. So do I need to do something specific on Exchange? Oh yes, it is recommended that you disable this anti-malware option. Like say it is very simple, that is you have to just use a script that is disable-anti-malware scanning.ps1 script, and the anti-malware is going to be disabled on Exchange, and you can use the third party that is running on the server. It still supports third party. And there is another thing, that the definitions, I mean your definitions requires to be updated. So you have a command that is update-malware filtering server update-malware filtering server and that actually updates it. Okay, is this anti-malware is subscription based for update? Oh, no, it's not really. No, when you buy Exchange, you get anti-malware built in. So you can update that if you want, or else it actually server does it every 1 hour. But if you want to do it more than earlier than 1 hour, you probably need to run this command. You probably need to put this in the scheduled task, but it does it every 1 hour. And there is the default anti-malware policy. Okay, that is something which is really good. Yes, definitely, it is not exactly comes under the standard cal. You need to buy the premier cal. Yeah. So it is something that you should buy an enterprise edition with enterprise cal. So the default anti-malware policy controls your the company-wide malware filtering settings, and as an administrator, you can view and edit, but not delete the default anti-malware policy. Okay, and I want to actually clear a few things in the extra licensing cost. It's not really an extra licensing cost. It actually comes with the Exchange. But yes, definitely, there are a few things which I talked about earlier, like say the DLP and other things, which really needs you to have a client access a license, a cal as well, running with an enterprise license. So it is not really an extra cost for, if you ask me, from the server point of view. The server is going to have either the standard or enterprise. Both are going to have almost every features except the number of databases. But the client level features, like say the DLP and other things like that, will not be available unless you have a enterprise cal for the client. But yeah, that's something you need to understand. The licensing of Exchange is not just the server licensing. You have a cal as well as you have the license for the server. Not really. Okay, is it using online forefront? Oh yes, definitely. That's what it's actually going to use. Yes, it is going to use the FOPI details to get you the details. And there is one more thing. You still need to use the FOPI. You can go through that. Like say you can disable the anti-malware protection on our end and then use FOPI still. It doesn't use FOPI straight away. It uses the definition of forefront. And something which I want to talk about is the licensing is something which is actually quite confusing, because there are many features which are not available unless you have a enterprise cal for the client. See, this is it is not going to forward your messages anywhere outside the network. So the question is, like, is it good for a financial firm? As long as your data is not going out of your network, it really shouldn't matter, because only the definitions are getting downloaded. So I don't think it will really matter. You can still use it for a financial firm as long as you do not move it outside the network. Okay, I think Dilip was actually asking something. I think that's it. I think he got the answer from the others. Okay, so good. So so that's about the anti-malware. Okay, default anti-malware policy. What is the default anti-malware it is using? Okay, okay, that's going to use the forefront definition. It is going to use the definitions that is made by forefront, and that is, again, it is Microsoft. So it's not anything third party. It is actually a Microsoft forefront database or forefront definition. See, like this way, the offline mode is something which is actually quite tricky at this point. The Outlook web app does give you an option to give you it in an offline mode, which probably, I think, we'll discuss it much details when we come across the client side. But yes, definitely offline mode browsing is possible via the Exchange 2013, and we'll definitely discuss what happens to the archive in that. Okay, so I think that's about the anti-malware protection. As I said earlier, I'm actually just trying to stick to the what is happening right now, so that we do not actually move around to multiple other topics, and that as long as that topics is there in the discussion list, we will surely cover up in the upcoming slides. Because then many would be even knowing what we are talking about, I think, rather than talking about many features in between. But we will be definitely discussing about the archive mailbox and its availability. Okay, so I think there is a major change that to the mail flow. I think Tony asked one of the questions. So how is the mail flow going to be if hub transport is not going to be there? Okay. The mail flow in Exchange 2013 is going to be done by 3 different services. The very first one is going to be a front-end transport service that is going to run on the client access server, and the hub transport service that is going to run on the mailbox server, and there is another one that is mailbox transport service that is going to run on the mailbox server as well. So this is clearly stating that it is not done by one server. It is actually done by both the server. So, but what is done by each, that is something we can discuss right now. Like say, the front-end transport service that is going to be running on a client access server is more or less going to be like a stateless proxy, which means it's not going to queue anything. Whatever comes in, it just gets forwarded to the mailbox server role. So that is more like a proxy for your inbound and outbound SMTP traffic. And the other thing is the mailbox transport service. Okay, this mailbox transport service, I skipped the hub transport service, and we should be discussing about that just after the mailbox transport service. The mailbox transport service really is 2 separate services. It's not actually one service. That's actually a mailbox transport submission service and mailbox transport delivery service. What is the difference? Like submission is something which actually retrieves the data. Like say if you're sending an email from your mailbox, it actually takes the data and gives it to the hub transport service. And the delivery service is something the other way. Like it takes from the hub transport and connects to the mailbox database, and that is going to use RPC to deliver the message to the mailbox database. And again, the mailbox transport service, either of this is going to do any queuing because it's going to be a stateless service. So something which you need to understand is the front-end transport service that is running on the client access server role and the mailbox transport service that is going to run on the mailbox server role. They are all stateless service or stateless kind of proxy, which really doesn't queue any of their tasks. And that comes to the hub transport service. This is again something that is going to run on the mailbox server role, which is identical to hub transport server role in the earlier version. And this is the servers which is actually going to handle every SMTP mail flow for that particular organization. It actually does categorization, it does looking into the inspection of the content and everything. So this is what actually carries those tasks, like say rules and everything applies here. And this is actually doing only one part. It actually just routes the mail between the mailbox transport service and the front-end transport service that is running on the client access server role, and this does queuing. Okay, so there is one thing which you need to understand. The queuing is only possible on a stateful proxy or a stateful service, and of these 3, the hub transport service is what is a stateful service. Okay, so there is one question which actually comes up, that is the messages that are, how is the mail flow? Like say for example, if the message is coming from the outside the organization, okay, we still have something called receive connector, and that was there in the older version, and that this receive connector is going to be on the front end transport service running on the client access server role. and once it is received, it is then routed to the hub transport service that is running on the mailbox server. And this is something which you should understand, that the transport service, the hub transport service of the mailbox will never ever communicate to the mailbox database straight away, because I think I discussed it here. Like say the mailbox transport delivery service receives the SMTP message from the hub transport and is going to connect that to the mailbox database. So hub transport is going to give it to mailbox transport delivery service, and that is the function of that transport delivery service to deliver that to the mailbox database, and it is going to use RPC, remote procedure call, to do that. Okay, and the other thing is the mailbox transport service communicated with the mailbox database on the local server, and that's what we just said. So, and there's another thing is the Exchange 2013 mail flow is 100% DAG aware. What do you mean by that? Suppose you have a server that is a member of a DAG, and if that particular mailbox is online on that particular server, only this mailbox transport service running on the online server is going to hold the active, or you can say the mailbox server which holds the active copy of the mailbox database is going to accept the messages. All of the passive copies are not going to be participating in the mail flow. So it is quite intelligent. This is something which I said earlier. Because of this, mailbox server role does have multiple functionality, but definitely it is quite a lot more intelligent at this point. Okay, so this is one question which I actually ask, okay, what about the RPC in mail routing? There's two questions people ask, like, how about RPC in client connectivity? It's a straight away, no, client doesn't use it. How about RPC in mail routing? Yes, RPC is used, but never ever used between the servers. It is only used if the mailbox transport service is sending a message or receiving a message from the local mailbox database. That's the only reason why an RPC will be used, but it will never be used between the servers. So I think that gives a good idea. Like say between the servers, that's when it is actually going to use RPC. But if it is actually between this, between the database, if the database is locally on the, the mailbox server is a member of a DAG, and it is going to only use RPC if it has to locally communicate to the mailbox database. Like say, if it has to deliver the mail that is going out of that particular server, RPC is not going to be used. And so what does it use? Like mailbox transport service and hub transport service on the different mailbox servers is going to use SMTP. So between the cross-server communication uses SMTP, and within the server to the database it uses RPC. Okay, so that's about the different mail flow. And then is there any improvement in the message queuing? Yes, definitely, because nowadays it does more precise queuing. What do you mean by that? It is actually going to say, instead of queuing, making one queue for all the emails that is destined to a remote AD site, it is going to have specific queues for, like, say, specific send connectors. So each send connector is going to have a specific queue. And there was a connector which was called linked connector in the earlier version. What is that link connector? A link connector is something like a receive connector that is linked to a send connector. So if any email is received on a receive connector, it's automatically forwarded to a send connector. It doesn't process anything. And why would you do that? It is something that you would use if you want the email to be scanned by a third-party software and come back to you. That's one reason you can use that, because you have a topology reason to do it. But that option is no longer there. You should figure out a new topology to do that, and that's not really going to be a big deal because we have several other options to do those scannings. So linked connector is something that is no longer there in the mail flow. Okay, so The mail flow is one of the biggest component, and that's not actually just for Exchange 2013. It is something that you should understand in the best level for any version of Exchange, because mail flow is something you should be thorough about so that you can actually go through and troubleshoot if something goes bad in the email functioning. So there is the transport pipeline, or the email going and moving around the Exchange. The pipeline has got three main components. That is the front end transport service that is going to run on the client access server, and there is another one that is hub transport service that is running on the mailbox servers, and mailbox transport service that is running on the mailbox server. And you should understand that the routing will recognize DAG boundaries. It does still recognize AD side boundaries, and you have a improved queuing. And now goes to the connectors. The default size earlier for a send and receive connector was 10 MB, and that is actually increased right now to 25 MB. And so that's something which is actually increased at this point. And the send connector is something that you set on the transport service of a mailbox server to route the it's not something it is something that you can set even on a transport service of a mailbox server if you want to route the outbound email through a front-end server. Okay, so that is that's about the send connectors, and that's about the receive connector. Receive connector is something that is going to run on the cache server role, and a send connector is something that you make on the mailbox server role to route the outbound email through front-end transport server. Okay, and I want to make it very clear, like the send connector is used for sending an email. You can use the send connector on a mailbox server role, and even you can actually have it on the client access, but that is if you are using it on the hub transport service on the mailbox server role, you're using that to route the email to front-end mailbox transport server. And edge transport, there isn't really an edge transport for a 2013 version. 2010 and 7 is what you have to use, or else you have to go with the third-party solution. So that's about the mail flow. Like, it's a huge topic, and I want to make it one thing. To understand the mail flow well, it does need more than half an hour. It's not something that we can cover up in half an hour. We should be going through in more details about the different queues, different details about the DSN value, the differences about. I mean, we need to go in much detail about the message tracking and all sort of things. So, depending on the request that can come up after the session, we probably can have a session that is specific to mail flow, which can have an end-to-end mail flow, wherein it can even actually cover up including the message tracking and the other portions of the mail flow. Okay, I think Ashish have one particular question. Oh yeah, this should be fine. I think this session is something which will be moving on for another 15 more minutes. So there is one more the part which is going to be, and that is going to be the recipient management part of it. And as I said, the session is being recorded. So if there is somebody who wants to do the session or hear the session and who couldn't actually attend the meeting, can review the recordings. And I think, yeah, I think probably Ashish, what we can do is the reason for choosing this time frame is because there are people who connects from multiple places, not only from one particular region. So, but definitely we can discuss internally, like after the sessions, like today and tomorrow, we can actually have a talk between each other. Whatever questions you have, you can actually clear up. And as I said, the session is recorded, so you can definitely review them, and so it should not be an issue actually if somebody has missed the beginning portion of it, or if somebody is missing the last or in between. Okay, so that's about the mail flow, and I want to take you Just a moment. Okay. All right. So the once that is done with the mail flow, we probably should be going forward with the last portion of what we're going to discuss today, and that is the recipient management. I'm not going to do the whole recipient management today. I'm only going to say you what you can do separately for Exchange 2013, and something that was not possible in the earlier version. And we should be good to do with the other recipient management, definitely, because we are all aware of the recipient management, the older version, so it's more or less similar. So there is there is actually something called a group naming policy. Like, this was one of the issue which administrators had in the earlier version. Like, the group name used to be like whosoever makes the group will keep a name which is actually something which he likes to keep. Maybe that's not as per the policy that the company wants to keep or the administrator wants to keep. So you can keep a policy which will let you standardize it. You can actually keep some sort of prefix or suffix, whatever you want to keep, like on top of the name. And say somebody wants to create an IT based thing, let's keep a prefix that is IT. So, and even you can actually block some specific names to be used. So this is something as a policy which is really good to make, which will actually make your group names quite a lot manageable and good. And the other part is the auditing reports, and this is one of the biggest thing which was not possible in the earlier version. Like, say suppose you have a send as permission on another mailbox. There was no real reporting unless and until you go into the details of the event log and see who made the changes. But now there is an audit possible for mailbox audit log, which means you can actually get to know whose mailbox is accessed by whom at one particular amount of time. You can get a log, and even administrator audit log is present, which is quite a lot useful if you want to understand what are the functions that is performed by an administrator. Like, say you ended up in an issue, like you want to understand what all activities were performed on the server. Maybe one of the activity has costed, so you can actually go through the logs and understand what was the changes or what are the commands that was run on the server, and then try to do an RCA. This is something really good if you are trying to do a root cause analysis to something bad which happened. That is something which is really a recommended option, which came up in the 2013. And the final thing is message tracking. It is quite a lot more granular right now. You can actually select a mailbox. You can actually search for a email that is sent or received by a different user, or you can do quite a lot of search which actually based on a specific words or a subject line, and you get a very detailed output which actually gives you a track of the message, whether the message was successfully delivered or what the pending delivery, and if it wasn't actually delivered. The auditing, okay, this is something which you will get to know. Like, say the auditing feature that you have in the 2013 is something which is actually added up to the administrator sender, Exchange admin sender that you have, and this is something you can run a report and you can export the entries what you have, and you have two different audit logs, and that is a mailbox and an administrator level, and you have to understand the differences when you see there is a lot more granular in the audit reports that you see on 2013. And this EAC is something which is actually a central console which you can use to get the details. Like, say you really do not need any other tool or any toolbox to do this. It is all available in one part, in one admin sender. So the auditing the auditing option is not new, but definitely it is included in the EAC at this point. So I think that's something which clears up. Like it is something which is actually added to the admin sender, which you would normally use in a normal circumstances. You don't have to use a different tool for that. So that's about the recipient management, and that's the end of the part one. And I want to understand the things from your end, like what you should, the questions that you have, what are the answers that you should know from me, and what do you want to include, anything extra than what is supposed to be there in the part two. We can try to accommodate as much as possible. And probably if you have any questions on whatever happened until now, please feel free to ask, and then we should be good to discuss. We can keep a discussion between ourselves and then as well up this point. So that's all about the questions, and I would like to thank you all for your time to join. It's almost 2 hours. We are on a session with no breaks. And if there is any suggestions or anything that you want to actually put it across to me, you can email it across. And as I said, the sessions are recorded. It will be uploaded, and it will give you a lot of details about what an Exchange 2013 can do later. Like, so once you go through this, you get to know what you should learn in more details or in depth.